We've had a chance to check out Alan Wake 2 as part of Summer Game Fest, and our man on the scene, Andy Robinson, is here to tell you all about it. Andy, how much of the game did you see? And give us a brief overview of the demo that you received.
So I saw quite a bit more than what they showed at Summer Game Fest. It was about 30 minutes of what they called one mission. So I saw, kind of a mix of combat and investigation and exploration. I was quite surprised, actually. There was quite a bit more to the game than what they showed. And that seems to be the reaction from a lot of the kids on the forums as well, is that they were surprised that they kind of just honed in on, some walking in a forest and a bit of shooting. And I don't think it really summed up what the game seems to be about. It was a real pleasant surprise, to be honest.
So expand more on that. What was it that took you by surprise, and why do you think they didn't show off that element of it?
In this Summer Game Fest setting, they kind of they need the shoot bang bang, right? I understand why they need a 60-second segment that's going to be sexy. Excuse me. They're not going to show, some slow-paced, investigative gameplay for a short trailer that's intended to get people to snap it up. So what we were shown was the games, as they kind of said so in Summer Game Fest, the game is split between two protagonists now. So it's a direct sequel to the original game, which came out 13 years ago, obviously. And the way the setup works is that you play as an FBI agent initially, called a woman called Saga, and she's a investigator and profiler, and she is investigating the appearance of some mysterious, kind of papers, like book pages. From a horror book that have clearly been written from by the man Alan, who in the previous game was kind of sucked into this alternative dark universe. And then kind of as she the story progresses, she encounters Alan, and then the players can kind of play through the game between both characters' perspectives, so you can hop between them. I think Alan plays in a more kind of horror game, themed a dark universe, whereas she's kind of in the daytime, kind of in the Pacific Northwest, like the setting from the first game. And the demo opens, with her kind of walking in the forest with another FBI agent played by, of course, Sam Lake, who many players will know as Max Payne. And this kind of dialogue plays out. It's very so placed, and they're kind of following the trail of this this character who, from what I could gather, had been kind of killed and in the morgue, and he was resurrected, mysteriously and kind of causing havoc. So they're trying to track down this monster, basically. And it was very slow paced. There was dialogue trees. You could sit and have a chat with Sam Lake's character. It was very reminiscent of the first game. Actually, it was daytime setting, in a beautiful forest. And then as players progress, kind of the two characters would split up, and kind of day would turn to night, and then it got a little bit more spooky to what you kind of saw in the trailer. From what I could gather, it's a lot slower paced game than the first one, and that's what the developers told me as much, which was, the medium's kind of matured in the 13 years since Alan Wake came out. We know the type of games that Remedy like to make. They like to make narrative driven single player games, and 13 years ago the only way you could kind of pad those out is with some shooting, right? So it's so in those days, in the previous game, it would just be a shooting gallery in places of these monsters running towards you, and that doesn't seem to really be the case with this one. There were some action sequences, but they made up probably 20% of the demo, and it was kind of one enemy at a time. I think there was one segment where there might have been two. It looks very Resident Evil in it mechanically, but the most interesting element that they kind of showed off was this mechanic called the Mine Place, and it's basically a 3D menu. you press start at any time and you're transported to your mind place, and it's like your investigation room, your study. And Saga has a like a big wall with clues scattered across it, in typical True Detective style. And she also has like a table with kind of photos of the characters that she's kind of like hunting down on it, and you can kind of sit down and profile them. Like she'll kind of like think about their behaviors to try and work out where to go next. And depending on which clues you move about on this board, like it's basically a visual representation of how the investigation's playing out. So if you ever like you're trying to figure out where to go next, you can kind of press start and you're immediately transported to this mind place, and you can like move your clues around the board to try and piece together, what your next objective is, and you will basically generate new objectives based on what you do with this this kind of clue board and profiling. So there was a point where she worked out, by profiling this character, like where a particular item would have been stashed, like where he would have placed it. And then once she kind of like whoever was playing the demo from Remedy kind of unpaused, a new objective appeared in the game, and then you could go and like perform that objective. So they described it as like a very meta experience, like based on what you do in that mind place, that you can generate all kinds of objectives that you might miss. And then obviously, you add even more layers to that when, as after this mission, the mission kind of ends with Saga finding Alan. There's a bit of a boss sequence when she tracks down this monster, and she ends up kind of bridging the gap between the two worlds and communicating with Alan. And then she finds him kind of washed up on a beach, as you kind of see in the trailer. And from that point, I'm told that the players have kind of autonomy to jump between the two characters. And the idea with that is that kind of like a pacing thing, like they describe it as a survival horror, their first survival horror game. To be honest, like the first game was pretty spooky. I mean, this jams it up a bit, but I don't necessarily think it's hugely tonally, kind of, more towards horror than the first game was. There's a lot of quirky characters, and obviously Sam Lake being in the game as an FBI character, like is proper quirky. All the dialogue is like, a bit quirky, a bit like, Control. I think there was a point where the Saga asks Sam Lake's character, "Why are you lost?" And he's like, the only time I've been lost was when I was with my ex-wife, and like just stupid dialogue like that. So it definitely, and that's what the developers told me as well, as much that they still have that quirkiness, and it's just kind of up to the player to sort of balance that. Like if you look at, they've not really shown Alan, well, they've not shown Alan gameplay yet, which I'm assuming they're going to do later in the year. And if you kind of look at the hints of it through the trailers and stuff, it looks like very dark, very, it does look a lot more kind of survival horror than probably large stretches of the first game were, whereas Saga's story seems to be a bit more familiar to people who played the original. Like apparently you can explore quite big areas, including Bright Falls from the original game, and you can go in the diner, from the original game, and it's daytime, and that actually looks really, really cool to me. Like they were saying, the inspirations are from like the Coen Brothers movies, like Fargo, and also True Detective season 1, and like bits of 7, and you can really see it. Like they've made an FBI game where you're like tracking down, trying to solve this mystery in the Pacific Northwest, and I think especially Remedy fans are really going to dig it.
So in terms of the swapping between characters, was there any indication to you that there will be a moment when it'll say, okay, you've played as far as you can as Alan, you have to swap over? Like how much freedom are they talking about giving you here?
Well, they haven't actually shown how the character switching works. They've only told us. However, they were quite clear, actually, how much freedom the player would have. They said the game will start off you as Saga. I mean, I'm assuming the mission that I saw was quite near the beginning, because obviously she's encountering Alan for the first time. And then after that point, players will have full autonomy to switch between them as they choose. And then towards the end of the game, that the developer will take kind of more control. I'm guessing for like narrative reasons. But they kind of emphasize that it's not like two characters playing the same campaign. It's like, it sounds like it's two different campaigns, like 50-50 if the game is Alan, 50% of the game is Alan, 50% is Saga. And you're just kind of choosing like how, which bits you want to consume. I mean, obviously there's a lot of unanswered questions on exactly how that's going to work. Like, it wasn't quite clear to me that, well, on a single playthrough, will you be able to, kind of consume all the content in the game, or is it a kind of a situation where a second playthrough can be quite different? I mean, they certainly did say that playing through the game again is something that they want to make worthwhile. But this is what Remedy's really good at, right? I mean, the game looks beautiful. It looks like a big AAA production. And but at the same time, they love taking risks. They love kind of investing in technology, and this looks like something different. That I honestly think is going to be a lot more successful than the original game was.
Excellent. Well, you can check out an extended interview with some of the team behind Alan Wake on VGC. Andy, I'm sure you have a million more unreleased games to go and play. How are things out in LA? How's the weather doing? How have you had some horrible food yet, or what?
Awful. It's raining. It's raining in Los Angeles. I brought the British weather with me. I have been eating exclusively burgers, which is what you have to do when you're running between kind of different meetings. But it's wonderful to be back at a big physical games event again. I came to Summer Game Fest last year and I enjoyed it, but it was very much a first step. There was only really two or three games worth seeing last year. This year there's a lot more. It's no way near E3 scale, but it's a step, kind of in the right direction. And it's great to be out here to speak to developers again and see lots of interesting games.
Excellent. Well, we won't keep you. Go and find out more about all these new games. You can learn all about them on VGC and catch up with any of the show that you have missed on VGC.